Hello, this is Shreya and our tiny mic. Today we're talking about a movie called Past Lives, which I think is probably one of my favorite movies I've watched this year, if not in a while. So of course I wanted to make a video about it. Very quick disclaimer, not a disclaimer, I guess, confession. I'm not actually using this mic. It's unplugged, but I really wanted to use it. I bought it while I was in Korea. I was so excited and I plugged it in. It's not working. It's broken. That's what I get for buying something like a tech stuff in art box. But anyways, pretend I'm talking into this. At least with the amount I move my hands, at least the audio would be consistent because I'm using a proper mic. But yeah, that out of the way. I have my blanket here. I have my Mogu Mogu, which I want to show you. This evening, it's Friday night. I'm home alone. I finished the pineapple one and then I'm like almost done with the lychee, however you say it. So let's talk about the movie. Okay, so I'm not like a movie buff, if that makes sense. Like, I'm not the first person jumping at the opportunity of watching a movie. I don't even keep track of what's coming out, what's not. I like movies, I like talking about movies, but I just feel like there's no point. Like, I'm so passionate when I talk about movies, but there's no point of me actually having like a movie review channel, like a dedicated one, because I'm just always so late to the game. Like books, like I'm so off trend, but I read what I read and then I talk about what I talk about. I have this channel, so I get the urge to talk about things. I usually only show up when I get the urge to talk about things, so you guys are very kind to still stick around. But in case you haven't watched it, please do after watching this video. The movie is called Past Lives. It is, I guess, partially Korean, but like most of the movie was in English. And it's based in, I want to say New York, but like in different places. I'll give you a very quick summary premise. I haven't really planned this video in any way, just wanted to like have a chit chat. So the movie starts off in Korea, and it sort of shows you this friendship between a guy and a girl who are seemingly in middle school, and they both seem to be like top of their class, and it's always like changing who's topping. So it's sometimes him, sometimes her, usually it's her, and they seem to be super close, like really close. And the one time that he does better than her, the girl gets really upset because she's like, she's crying, and he's like, why are you upset? Is it because I beat you? And then he's like, but you always beat me and this is the first time. So just seems like a really cute, innocent relationship. And then at some point her mom is like asking her like about school, and she's like, oh, I'm really close to this one guy, probably gonna get married to him. Like, innocent talk when you are young. One day we learn that the mom decides that they will be immigrating to Canada, so the girl's family, and she sort of says to the girl like, oh, you're close to this guy in your class, why don't you guys go for like a last date to like make some memories before you go away? And they do that. Like, the girl's mom meets up with the boy's mom, and they go on this like cute little date, and the boy's mom is asking her like, why take the risk, why immigrate when you guys are doing so well here, you have like your careers and everything. And there's something that the mom says that I feel like is sort of sets the mood for the whole movie. So the girl's mom, she's like, yes, I know, like, but in order to gain something in life, you usually have to, let go of something, or you lose something. So it's kind of like you win some, you lose some, I guess, what her mindset is. And the mindset of the guy's mom is more like, if you have it good, if it's not broken, why fix it? Which is very interesting because this is their parents' mentality, right, in a nutshell. And then you kind of leave the parents behind. You don't really hear much from them for the rest of the movie. So the girl is called Nora and the guy is called Haesung. And Nora's mom and family are the ones that are moving away, and Haesung is the one who's going to stay in Korea. So yeah, Nora and Haesung meet for the last time. She's kind of saying goodbye to everyone in her class, and you can really say that Haesung is getting affected by this, but he's not really showing it. And at the end, on the last day, like usually he always walks her home, like both of them just walk back from school together, but on this last day, like they're both just quiet, and at the end of the road they just say bye and they part ways. Because when you're that age, you don't really know what goodbyes mean, and you don't really know how permanent things are, and it's just really complicated feelings, and I think they show this really well. And then yeah, Nora moves away to Canada. That's where her family moves away, and you learn that initially moving away to a new country, and she didn't really speak English, so it's a struggle, you know. She's struggling to make friends and stuff, but they don't show it like, you know, oh, she's getting bullied or anything. It's just very subtle, very tastefully done. And I feel like just looking at her standing in the playground like that, staring at other kids, partially I could relate because I moved to the UK on my own. Granted, I could speak English and I could make friends and everyone was really welcoming, but still you sort of feel like, you know, you're alone in this new place. You can't help but feel like it just, you don't know what to do, and you don't know how you fit in, and you don't know what you're meant to do to fit in or anything like that. So especially for a young kid, I can imagine how hard it is. From then on, you kind of breeze past their early years. You learn that, you know, Nora's always been really, I guess, someone who's very aspirational. So she's always kind of like trying to do more. She wants to be a writer, and eventually she ends up moving to New York. And this is where the rest of the movie takes place. Once she moves to America, she is, I believe, in university, and again she has time to kind of dwell on her life, look in the past. And one day when she's having a conversation with her mom, she just ends up talking to her about like, oh, I wonder what people who we knew back in Korea are up to, like my friends and, you know, people I went to school with. And like randomly they're like looking people up on Facebook, mother and daughter stalking, which I thought just such a cute scene. And then they end up finding Haesung, and her mom was like, oh, you remember that guy you used to have a crush on? And she's like, who? Oh, Haesung. And they realize that like he's still living with his parents, which is quite common in Asia and Korea, and he's working, so he's living a very ordinary life. And she makes a comment about it like, oh yeah, like he seems to be still living with his parents and having a job. Oh, good for him. And while she's looking him up, she finds that he actually left a comment on her dad's Facebook or something like that, because he was looking for Nora a couple of years ago. So she was like, oh, that's interesting, let me leave him a message. So she looks him up, does a bit of stalking, and then finds him and leaves him a message. And then he's really like surprised to hear from him. He's like, oh my god, like, yeah, I did look for you a couple of years ago. And they then jump on this Skype call. And I think like the fact that they really stuck to, so for example, if they were in university 10 years ago, then they would have been talking on Skype, right? Well, like a lot of us did. So even the sounds of these, like, you know, the dial and tone and everything was super nostalgic. It really felt like you were with them in the early 2010s, like in university. And yeah, they were just talking, and as they talk, I feel like for Nora especially, it reminds her of something that she's left behind and feels very familiar. And she really loves like talking to him. They end up talking like, they don't, it's not like they're dating or they talk about anything romantic, but I feel like they both, like that comfort that they found in each other when they were kids, it was very natural to find that in each other again. But like you can see from these interactions that Nora's like quite a confident, you know, she's quite like shy, but like still more straightforward. Whereas Haesung, he's like quite traditionally Korean in the sense that he's like very shy, very timid. He's not very like, he says like some things that appear a little bit blunt, but at the same time like he's very respectful, and you know, he seems like super caring, super nice. And it just happens to be that she wants to see him, and one day after class she finds herself like coming home, and then she's in her little like room looking up how to like flights to Seoul. And I feel like it gives her kind of like a reality check, because suddenly she calls him and she's like, I think we should stop talking. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, I feel like, and I've given up a lot to be here, and I've immigrated twice, and there's a lot that I want to achieve, and right now me looking for flights back to Seoul is not a good thing. So I guess they both don't say it, but they both realize that they are falling into this trap of maybe they're falling in love, and she doesn't really want that, because she doesn't want her life to kind of revert back to what she left behind. She wants to keep moving forward, and moving to New York might not be something that he wants to do. But it's quite clear that this affects him quite a lot, because you can see the way he's reacting to it. It feels like a breakup even though it's not a breakup. And up until this point in the movie I was like, interesting, but like nothing groundbreaking, right? Like I thought it was like okay. And then yeah, they seemingly break up, and she goes to this like writer's retreat. So she is an aspiring, I don't know if she's an aspiring author or just a writer or a journalist, but she goes to this retreat where it's this house, and like a couple of artists and writers, they just live together, and they have this little like creative juices brewing kind of situation, I don't know. And at the same time, Hae-sung decides to go to China for some business opportunity, and it just turns out that they both find someone. So Nora meets Arthur, and Hae-sung meets someone in China, and they don't really like show his side of the story that much, but yeah, so we just get to see more of Nora. And when Nora meets Arthur, they seem to hit it off very instantly. She's talking to him about insang. I forget the exact word, but there's a word in Korean called insang, and it's like the thing about fate, and that you must have meant something to each other in your previous lives to keep, like, to have significant interactions in this life, which very interesting. Again, you get these little I guess nuggets of like cultural nuances thrown in there for you to learn and understand why they might be thinking, or why they might be seeing certain situations in certain ways. So yeah, that happens, but yeah, they just end up kissing, and from there we again do a time jump into the current future, which is Nora is now happily married to Arthur, and they live in New York in this like East Village, in this tiny little like apartment. It's so cute. Not my style personally, but I can see like they're very hipster. They're that living that writer slash author, whatever it is, life, like wearing these really they look like thrifted leather jackets, and really like she dresses so well, and he's really stylish, so they're just having a good like life. And at the same time, we see Hae-sung. He has his friends, but like seems like he's broken up with his girlfriend quite recently, and he has this corporate job. And in Asia, corporate jobs and corporate life can be really, really intense. So we see that he's like really under a lot of pressure to perform. He's still living with his family, so it's quite a lot going on. But at the same time, their lives are as different as it gets. She's very independent, hyper independent, and she's just living her life very open-minded. She's just kind of, she seems just so light. There's an airiness to her, whereas whenever they film, like even the clothes that he's wearing, like very tight, and just seems very like stuffy and suffocating, to be honest. But what I think they mostly show, that even though she's not like, I guess on paper like a massive author, like so successful, she's just living a normal life. Like even then, it seems like she's so far ahead of him, because he seems like every time you go to he's in the same house with his parents in a very like stuffy job. So even though I don't see it like that, I feel like the movie was kind of showing that she just seems to keep moving ahead, where he's still stuck in the same place. So anyways, he seems to have a really good relationship with his family and everything, so everything's going good for him too. It's not like he's struggling or anything. He's in the right path for things, but he's just doesn't seem as free as Nora. Tara's here to join us. You can see his little ear. Aww. So something really interesting that happens right now is that Nora and Arthur are walking. They're just taking like a walk, and then Nora brings up that she is meeting this friend of hers who's coming from Korea this weekend. And then the guy, her husband Arthur, he's just like, oh, like, is it the guy who used to have a crush on you or something like that, right? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, is he coming to meet you? And she's like, no, apparently it's just like a trip, and he just wants to like see me. Which apparently, now that they're married, they had visited Korea, and she did try to like meet up with him, but he didn't really like respond, so she just dropped it. But after so many years, he's wanting to meet with her, so she was like, sure. And she seems quite open, and her husband Arthur seems to be really open about it. So far, you don't really get to learn much about Arthur. Like, I feel like he's just like a standard character that we get no insight into, but later down the movie you learn that this was very intentional, and you do get to learn more about Arthur, and it's absolutely heartbreaking, because I personally think this actor did such a good job. It's probably what made the movie for me. So yeah, after this is like the main shots that I guess went viral, where Hae-sung and Nora meet after so many years, like what, like decades, and they have this really cute hug, and they just go around walking around New York learning about each other. But it's very evident to the viewers and to Nora that Hae-sung definitely is hung up on her, and he did come all the way to New York to meet her, and you know, learning about his life and learning about the pressures and why he broke up with his girlfriend, because he feels like financially like he's not really there yet, and the expectation is for him to have a lot more I guess established by the time he gets married. So it kind of dropped the thing there. They didn't get married, and it just like he seems so happy to be there with her, but at the same time there's like a sadness to it. And then she comes home and her husband's like, oh, how was it? And she's like, yeah, good, like actually it was really nice. He makes me feel like really not Korean but Korean at the same time. And she's talking about him like such an innocent way that honestly I could relate, because sometimes I feel like I don't realize how the things I say and the way they describe, because I'm so like, I'm a very open person. I'll just say it how it is, and I wouldn't realize that what I'm saying might not be the best way to say it. Like for example, if I talk about a guy in front of my boyfriend and I'm describing, say, yeah, it's kind of hot, like I probably shouldn't be saying that, but I don't mean anything by it because I don't have any like emotions tied down. But I think sometimes it is good to just self-check. And what they showed here was definitely her realizing that she shouldn't like have these kind of thoughts, but it's so human. So she and the husband is kind of like, oh, like, you know, do you find him good looking? But at the same time he's so like nice about it. He's like, okay, all right, are you gonna see him more? Like, what's happening? I think he's like not at all like pressuring her. He's not trying to be like, no, you can't see him, like what was this, I'd rather you not go again, nothing like that. He's kind of letting her figure it out, because I think the way he sees it, or it, like if she wants to go with this other guy, what in the world can I do to keep her? Like if she's made her mind, I can't hold her hostage. Which was so refreshing, because a lot of people in this situation might feel like, you're my wife, like you're not going anywhere, you're not going to see this guy again, which might push people away even more. The fact that he gave her this like space to figure her stuff out was just so refreshing, and something I feel like they don't show enough in movies. You see Nora go again another whole day out with Hae-sung, and this time they go to Liberty Island and they're seeing Statue of Liberty. They take some photos, and in the evening they go out for dinner and drinks with her husband Arthur. So she's like, oh, come, like let's all go for dinner together. And Hae-sung is like, are you sure it's okay, because it's like really weird for me to come? And she's like, no, it's fine, he's fine, he knows about you. And as soon as Arthur sees Hae-sung, he's just like, and like you can see like he thinks that this is a good looking guy. He clearly feels like a little bit not threatened, but you know, like he knows what's going on. And it's very evident that, you know, like Hae-sung also is very much into Nora. And sorry, before the second meeting, between the first meeting and the second meeting, Nora and Arthur are lying in bed having a conversation about this whole meeting and how she feels about it and this and that, right? And this, I don't want to give any spoilers or any context about this conversation they have in bed, but to me this is masterpiece. Like because the scene just stays on them the whole time, felt to me very much like I was reading like basically the best part of a book, right? They're just lying there and it was just dialogue and they're just talking, and it was just so good. This scene changed my entire perspective of the movie, and probably is the reason I really, really love it. And they were just talking about how he feels that he, you know, at this point, you know, he is the bad white dude who's just standing in the way of true love, which is between her and Hae-sung. The fact that they are meeting after so many decades and they should really fall back in love with each other, and he's just this like evil white man standing in the way. And then she asked him like, do you really think that you are supposed to be the answer to my family's immigrant dreams? And just like, okay, I gave you 2 little spoilers there, but generally the whole dialogue is just chef's kiss. So yeah, the second time they meet, they go out for dinner, the 3 of them, and you can really see that the way the scenes are shot, again, cinematic masterpiece. It seems like Nora is so drawn to Hae-sung the whole time, and the husband almost feels like, again, he's just there as like a shadow, not interfering, never putting himself in the middle, but at the same time he's not like forgotten in the same way. And the movie begins with this scene, by the way, where you're seeing Nora, Hae-sung, and the husband kind of on the other side of the bar, and imagine you're on the other side of the bar and you're trying to guess what the relationship between these three people are. And the people who are sitting on this side, they kind of say like, what do you think those people, the relationship between them are? And one says maybe the Asian guy and the Asian girl are dating and that's her friend, or maybe those two are dating. And it's like so hard to tell, and that's exactly what it is. Just looking at Nora's micro expressions and the way her body's kind of positioned towards Hae-sung, even though she's closer to her husband, there's just such a tension, or just such a like a confusing, like the confusion inside her mind can be really seen in her body language and the way she's seated between the two of them. At the same time, when she's talking to Hae-sung and she's talking about these things, she's like translating at the same time, trying to keep up the conversation between them three. And at some point she just says like, I know back then we, like when we were kids, you know, we did say stuff and, you know, we felt a certain way, but we're not kids anymore. And almost making herself realize that she's too old and she's made commitments and she's made promises. And also like she never thought about him until he showed up in her life. So it just seems so cruel to, you know, have these thoughts or put these thoughts in someone's mind just to kind of mess everything up when someone was like fine without all of this. And I guess the best part about the movie is that it gave you no answers. So from there they go home, and Hae-sung kind of picks up his luggage and he is now off back to Korea, and she goes to drop him off and they just have a little chat. And it's just so much sadness in her because she knows what the right thing is to do, but she's so conflicted. And that conflict, you know, that internal conflict and the internal dialogue, like it's just all in her expressions and the way she's like holding herself together. And as soon as she walks back home, her husband's waiting for her and she completely breaks down, and that's how the movie ends. So yes, she didn't do anything about it. She chose to stay with her husband. And in any other context, I'm the kind of person, I'm like, girl, go chase your dreams. But like the fact that like this wasn't even about that, the movie just showed human emotion in such a beautiful way that I see why this movie is so popular. And I'm actually really happy that this movie is so popular, because I feel like these are factors, emotions, and nuances in relationships that people don't really back. Like, you know, we've all been in places and in relationships where we don't know what the right thing to do is, or we know but we don't want that. And then why is it so bad to chase what you want? But like at the same time, you shouldn't hurt people who love you. So it's such a human thing to be conflicted and be I guess confused about what the right thing would be, but a lot of us still question it. So I found that really honestly interesting. I think we should have these questions posed to us more often. And right after that, like I spoke to Marco about it and he had many like, you know, thoughts about it. So generally I feel like as far as movies go, I love ones that leave me with more questions than any like answers. So yeah, that's my one true long monologue about the movie Past Lives. And yeah, if you haven't watched it, I hope you watch it. The actors are brilliant. Like I said, the husband's acting especially, the way the whole movie was shot, like the way they kept some people in the foreground, and you know, the focus on the characters and everything was just so beautiful. I don't know anything about cinematography, and like I do film myself, I do some bits, but like I don't know how to say this, but like I'm not really like someone who, I guess, you know, does like, I've not studied it, I don't know the technicalities of it, but still I really enjoy it. So yeah, that's all, nothing more to say. I'll see you guys soon. Hope you enjoyed this. Say hello to my tiny mic. I'll see you guys.